Hi, this is Mighty CS Man. I teach a complete curriculum on the Building Java Programs book for learning Java and the accompanying Practice It website. Today we're looking at exercise 6.4. Chapter 6 is all about text processing. And this problem is the third in a series that I'm giving you help on exercise 2, 3, and 4. And this one has, just to review quickly, let's go back and take a look. So exercise 6.2, even numbers, so we just have a string of numbers here and they wanted us to compute some things based on them. Exercise 3, now we've got positive and negative numbers. We need to actually count how many, count whether there's a negative sum that ever appears. And so it's a little bit more complicated, but still a similar type of reading numbers out of a file. This is the more complex of them. So now we're not only reading numbers out of a file, but we've also got intermixed with the numbers, we've got a description of whether it's a penny, quarter, nickel, or dime. So this gets to be a little bit more complex, but I always want you to approach the problem in the same way and think about what tools you have to use. In particular, what did we learn in exercise 6.2 and 6.3, and how do we apply it to 6.4? Okay, so first of all, what kind of algorithm is this? Well, pretty much all the problems that we see with text processing are of the form, we're going to end up with a loop. Let me log in. Go ahead and put the header in here, and you're going to end up with the loop. Okay, that we're taking an input. We know that the loop is going to do something like while has next input, and then in here we're going to be read the input, process the input, and then finally print the result. And this is the same format that we've seen with exercise 2 and exercise 3. So the complexity here is that sometimes we have numbers and sometimes we have words. So in the past, if you've done exercise 2 and 3, you know you can put the input dot has next int here. Okay, and one possible way to do this is because that's going to fail for the quarters and the pennies, has next int. So you could possibly replace this with just has next, and then inside here you could check whether it has next int, and if it's the int, then you know it's the count. Otherwise it's the descriptions, the quarters, pennies, etc. But that gets a little bit complicated because then you have to remember state. So there's a simpler way to do this problem. That is, you have to read the problem carefully and realize, let's see, where does it say this here? It consists of a pair of tokens, okay? So each pair begins with an integer and is followed by a type of coin, which means we don't actually need to process this separately from this. We process both of these together as one, both of these together as one, both of these together as one. So the has next int will still work for you here, okay? So if you find that there's an int there, that's the count. Okay, then what we know is we can actually read the count. Okay, and then to process that input, now the processing input gets a little bit more complex. Okay, so we know that that a coin type will follow. So what we can now do is to read the string of coin type, then if pennies, etc., else if nickels, kind of that kind of thing, okay? And what's the result if it's that? Then we know for pennies, actually we can say pennies, we don't have to do anything. For it's like nickels, multiply by 5 cents, okay? And there's always, with these types of problems, this is a cumulative type problem. So we know that we're going to have to initialize a count, actually not a count, but a sum, right? And this could be an int or a float. It can be your choice, okay? But depending on whether you use it as an int or a float, then how much you multiply by 5 cents, 10 cents, 25 cents, etc., then that's going to change your code a little bit. And then for printing the result, you do need to print it in a specific format here. And if you go back to exercise 6.2, I teach you about how you can use printf. All right, so that's as far as I'm going to take the code. You're going to have to figure out the code to go in there yourself. But if you look at exercise 2 and exercise 3, that'll tell you that the overall format of this. Really, what's different about exercise 4 is having first getting the integer count, and then you can't just add it. You actually have to then read the type of the coin, which is just a string. So you can use next, and you don't need to check has next. I mean, that would be safe, but you don't need to because you're guaranteed that there's always going to be a string next. So you read the next to get the string, and you test the string. And remember, when you're testing strings, you can't just use equals, the equals sign, okay? You need to use the string dot equals function, right? And also be careful of capitalization, right? So here's all caps, here's mixed case, here's another mixed case. So there's several ways you can do that. There's an equals ignore case, or there's a to lowercase or to uppercase. So you've got to do a couple of things to be careful about that as far as matching the strings go. All right, so that's countCoins. That's the most complex of the exercise 2, 3, and 4. If you didn't already do 2 and 3, I would definitely suggest you do those before you do exercise 4. If you have found this problem useful, then please like and subscribe. I have a complete series with all the chapters of building Java programs and many of the exercises and self-checks. I also have a week 1 orientation on how you can get set up with Practice It. So like and subscribe. Thank you very much.